Picture a 7-foot diesel engine roaring down the lane, shattering backboards and egos alike. Now picture that same giant, phone in hand, at 2 a.m., furiously typing a clapback to a tweet from a role player. Hard to reconcile, right? Yet that paradox is Shaquille Rashaun O'Neal, 4-time champion, platinum rapper, and arguably the pettiest superstar the NBA has ever produced. How did a man famous for handing out free sneakers to kids also become the league's undisputed king of grudges? Tonight, we roll back the clock 23 years and follow every breadcrumb of beef, because the trail is seasoned, sizzling, and still smoking. Shaq in the early 2000s was untouchable on the court, Finals MVP 3 straight seasons, out-muscling entire front courts. But the moment Hall-of-Famer Bill Walton suggested the big fella shed a few pounds to ease the pain in his arthritic toe, Shaq's armor cracked. Instead of ignoring the critique, he fired a verbal elbow. "Walton talks too much. I did more in 3 seasons than he did in his career." It didn't matter that the advice came from a center who'd battled similar foot injuries. In Shaq's world, criticism, no matter how constructive, felt like an assault on his throne. The feud froze over for years, thawing only after Walton's death in May 2024, when a somber Shaq admitted on TNT that he'd been too sensitive, and even wanted to put hands on Walton back then. Viewers wiped tears. The giant finally bared a bruise beneath the armor. But if you thought that epiphany would mellow him out, buckle up, because the very next chapter proves old habits die hard. Fast forward to the 2008 slam dunk contest. Dwight Howard soars in a red cape, rips off his jersey to reveal the legendary S, and the arena erupts. America sees a superhero. Shaq sees identity theft. The original Superman nickname had been his personal brand since Orlando days. Watching a fresh-faced Howard fly with it felt like watching someone hijack your signature dunk. For the next 15 years, Shaq undercut Dwight at every turn, belittling his post moves, mocking his free throw woes, dismissing his lone Laker ring in 2020 as Instagram bragging. Then came April 2025. Reports surfaced that Howard wanted Shaq to escort him into the Hall of Fame. Shockingly, Shaq said yes, only to roast Dwight in a podcast 24 hours later, joking that he'd still bring the cape so fans could see the real Superman. The olive branch was dipped in hot sauce. And just when fans wondered if a handshake could ever happen, Shaq found a new sparring partner who barely spoke English, yet still pushed his buttons. In 2019, Rudy Gobert cried on camera after learning he'd missed the All-Star game. Shaq mocked the tears. Months later, Gobert signed a $205 million extension. Shaq scoffed, telling kids they could average 11 points and still get paid. When co-host Kenny Smith dubbed Gobert one of the best bigs alive, Shaq nearly walked off set. The pettiness peaked when he vowed to score 12 points on Rudy in 3 minutes. Gobert's polite clapback promising to lock up prime Shaq only fueled the flame. By 2024, Shaq called Rudy the worst $200 million player ever on the OG podcast. Nobody kept receipts like the Diesel, and Gobert's France soft accent didn't shield him from the smoke. But social media beef is one thing. Televised humiliation hits different, and no one felt that sting like JaVale McGee. Shaqtin' a Fool started as harmless comedy, NBA lowlights set to circus music. Yet JaVale starred so often the joke became an identity. In 2017, the Warriors center finally tweeted, "Shaq, get a life. Big mistake." Shaq clapped back with threats and memes of McGee's blown layups. Golden State filed a complaint to Turner Sports. Kevin Durant called Shaq a hater. Even JaVale's Hall of Fame mother demanded TNT fire him. Still, Shaq refused to apologize until his mom stepped in. On live TV, he relented, crediting Mama O'Neal for ending the feud. But the lesson was clear. Cross him publicly, feel the full weight of a 7-foot troll army. Yet pettiness isn't confined to hardwood grudges. Sometimes it drops a beat and spits a 16. Shaq's 4 studio albums and a platinum plaque had long crowned him the best baller rapper. Enter Damian Lillard, stage name Dame Dollar. In 2019, Dame casually told Joe Budden he rapped better than Shaq. The response came within hours. Shaq's Instagram diss track bristled with lines like, "You'll never be Curry, never be Russ." Dame's counter, "Kobe won you those rings though, hit harder than a wilt elbow." The hip-hop blogs declared Dame the victor. Shaq called it just marketing and suddenly went silent. Pride wounded, crown dented, but the scoreboard read 0-1. And while Shaq could walk away from rap combat, he couldn't ignore a Hall of Fame tight end poking the bear. May 8th, 2024. Nikola Jokic secures his third MVP. Moments later on TNT, Shaq congratulates the Joker, then says Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should have won. The sports world gasps. Shannon Sharpe labels Shaq jealous on his podcast, adding that the big man had squandered his own potential. 36 hours later, Shaq drops a diss track snarling, "You're way beneath me." Sharpe shrugs, says he's ready to move on, but Shaq fires an Instagram manifesto reminding Shannon he wasn't even top 10 in NFL history. For fans, it was vintage Diesel, thin-skinned, thick-voiced, microphone blazing. Yet the very next year, a different microphone, this time in a courtroom, forced Shaq to pay rather than rap. June 15, 2025. Headlines blare. Shaq settles FTX lawsuit for $1.8 million. The crypto exchange collapse had dragged multiple celebrities into court, but seeing a man worth $400 million cut that check sparked fresh jokes about karma. Shaq called the payment the cost of setting the record straight, but critics called it poetic justice. The loudest man in sports finally silenced by a judge's gavel. Simultaneously, rumors swirled about Shaq officially patching things up with Dwight Howard ahead of the Springfield ceremony, then snarking about him days later on a podcast. Peace treaties, like jump hooks, sometimes rim out. Why does a 52-year-old multi-millionaire still swing at every slight? Psychologists chalk it up to legacy anxiety, the fear that one's historical ranking erodes with each new superstar. For centers, the big man lineage is sacred. Shaq forged a big man alliance. Russell, Wilt, Kareem, Walton, and himself. Yet bristles whenever a newcomer is mentioned in the same breath. Social media only amplifies the cycle. Controversy fuels clicks, clicks fuel brand deals fuel the empire. In 2025 alone, Shaq boasts 15 national commercials, everything from printers to pizza ovens. Pettiness, it turns out, pays. And it's lost in the noise is Shaq's generosity. He's quietly funded more than a dozen STEM labs in Title I schools, paid funeral expenses for strangers, and once bought an entire Atlanta family a new house after overhearing their story at a furniture store. When Hurricane Ian flattened parts of Florida, Shaq's foundation cut a 7-figure relief check within 48 hours. Ask the beneficiaries, and they'll tell you. The same man who roasts Rudy Gobert online also drives to rural Walmarts just to surprise single moms with groceries. The duality is startling, but maybe that's why fans remain fascinated. So is Shaq truly the NBA's biggest hater, or merely its most savvy showman? The answer, like the man, is XXL. His grudges provide endless headlines, yet his kindness fills just as many hearts. One thing is certain, as long as new stars rise and hot take culture thrives, Shaqille O'Neal will stand ready, ringed fingers on the keyboard, supersized heart on his sleeve, ego primed for the next jab. And that tension, that constant tug-of-war between pride and generosity will keep us clicking every time his name trends. But that's only the first course. In our next deep dive, we'll uncover the strangest NBA feuds you've never heard of. Yes, including the player who once tried to fight a teammate over a PB&J sandwich. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Drop a comment. Which Shaq beef was the most entertaining? Superman versus Superman or the Sharpe diss track? And do you think his pettiness is calculated or genuine? Let's settle it below.